Hello everyone, it's me, Warwick Weston Wright, your altruistic sanctimonious git of a communist friend here. I'm kind of making another video about criminal nature, which is going to cover a lot of the stuff I said before. The reason why I'm making another video is because as time goes on, I managed to find ways to articulate my beliefs into words a bit better. I also find that explaining the same thing using different words, sometimes it makes the penny drop for some people as well. I want to also focus a little bit more on this video addressing victims of criminal rings or even paedophile rings, and I kind of want to explain in a bit more detail how the brainwashing techniques of how they manage to convince a youngster that's a victim of a criminal ring to believe that criminal behaviour is normal behaviour. And this is kind of what I want to emphasize here in this video. So I'm going to start out by telling you a little philosophy that I heard recently from Star Wars. I recently watched The Rise of Skywalker. There's a philosophy in the film that I really liked. It was quoted twice. The Empire wins by making you believe you're alone. I thought, I like that. I like that philosophy. It's really good because it applies to criminal nature and corruption in general. But anyway, I'm going to talk about how, because it's divided into two sections, how these victims are brainwashed into believing that criminal behaviour or questionable behaviour is normal. And I'm going to divide it into 6 of one, half a dozen the other. And I'll start out with the six of the one, and half a dozen the other later. Now, basically, half of how they actually convince these victims that criminal behaviour is normal is that they very often use like a majority authority kind of context. So people tend to believe things from authoritative sources, but if you get the majority of people to say something, believe something, or get someone to believe the majority of people believe something, it creates a virtual contextual authority that this must somehow be right. Normally, young people that are being kind of brainwashed or groomed into criminal rings or paedophile rings, or both very often, they basically they're only told one narrative, so they never hear, which is the criminal narrative, and they never ever hear anything opposite to that narrative, which is kind of obviously how they're kind of brainwashed into believing that bad behaviour is normal behaviour. So I'm going to explain how criminals do that. First of all, there's an old saying, evil knows evil, which is probably a relatively true saying, and criminals, birds of a feather flock together, that kind of stuff. And what criminals tend to do is they'll find a child that is surrounded by bad influences or bad parents, because obviously they're quite vulnerable to being kind of groomed, and the criminals will surround them and befriend them, and they'll start to feed them criminal narratives, but they'll feed them these criminal narratives in front of all of their mates. So all of their mates kind of agree with what the criminal narrative of the person's saying in front of the child. It sets up a majority authority context. So the child believes it's true, or everyone else around us believe it. Someone might, and the type of things that they say to victims very often is different to what they say to other people. For example, though it's not an exact rule, what they say to victims and what they say to people outside the ring, but obviously they have to have a strategy to cut the child off from all good influence, basically, which means that the challenge is you have to surround the child by bad people, but also have a strategy to prevent anyone on the outside looking in from correcting the child and allowing that child to hear something contrary to the criminal narrative which is being fed to that child by the criminals, basically. And I'm going to explain how that works. So first of all, you've got the majority authority. Now you might say there might be some simple things they might normalise. A really common thing they might say to a child is, there's nothing I hate more than grasses and nonces. If you're watching this in a different country other than England, grass and nonce in England, a grass is a nickname for an informer, and a nonce is a nickname for someone that's into sexual misconduct. So, and they'll say, there's nothing worse that I hate more than the grasses, and they'll say that in front of a child around all of their mates. So they're saying that, so that's a way, and they'll say it with anger. So they'll enforce this belief in the child with both fear and shame. And because they're around the majority of people seeing that, they kind of think that majority authority, it must be true. And there's lots of things they might say. I'd say another example, what they might say to a child they might say, for example, I've got some notes down here. So they'll say things which, like, they might actually appeal to, say, the child to might want to make the child racist, for example. It might be surrounded by like white people, and they might say racist things to get, maybe eventually get the child to do bad things to black people they want, or they might normalize things like anything which criminal, like literally anything. They might talk about, oh yeah, I was selling some dope to my friend the other day. Oh yeah, I know him, he's a policeman. Oh, I know you sold dope to him. And they kind of talk to it the same way you would talk about the colour of a garden fence, so it's normalised, if that makes sense. And you know, the child might start questioning something, and they say, oh well, it's okay to sell, you know, marijuana, so, you know, as long as no one gets hurt, for example. And again, they're around all their mates when they say it, and their mates don't say anything contrary to it, or they'll go, oh yeah, I agree, like that. And this is kind of how a child gets brainwashed. But then, you know, as I was talking about, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, you've got to explain to, well, how that probably brings up the question, well, how does that child brainwash into believing that this is normal behaviour? Well, how do they stop other people looking in from correcting that child? And this is the important thing about 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Because the half a dozen of the other, believe it or not, and you're not going to want to hear this, a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this, but it's actually collectively our fault. I think how could it be our fault? Because people have a bad habit of being in denial and denying to themselves that they're to blame everything. They want to blame the government, they want to blame the police, they want to blame the criminals, but they never blame themselves. And the thing is, it's very, very, very important, is that the way criminals work is that it's very impractical to try and scare someone into doing the wrong thing. But scaring someone into not doing the right thing, unfortunately, is extremely easy. And this is what the criminals actually prey on. And so, for example, if the child knows someone, or someone outside looking in wants to correct the child, they'll scare that person into not correcting the child, for example. For example, sometimes you might get some subtle threats. You know, a criminal might say something to you, oh yeah, I remember someone left out this document, and you know, it was his rap sheet, and said that, like, in this rap sheet said, like, oh, you know, it was this person was a sex offender, and they left it out to someone to find, and someone found it, and, you know, he got beaten up and he got killed. Yeah, it was really, really bad, you know, and evidently someone actually delivered it through someone's door box, and it was the wrong door box. And yeah, criminals get up to things like that, but they'll say it in the context of a subtle threat of like saying, well, you know, if you correct this child, we're going to do this to you. They don't literally say that, but they say it in that kind of threatening context. Or you know, I remember someone said to me once, oh yeah, we was going out to beat the crap out or kill some nonce or something like that, and we got stopped by the police. We told the police why we're doing it, and the policeman said, oh yeah, anyway, then continue. Like, they try to, and they'll say that in front of people, and they're fellow criminals. Of course, the idea is you don't know that they're their fellow criminals. So by doing that, they subtly scare people into not doing the right thing. So, you know, as for example, you might meet a child that offers to sell you marijuana in the streets, and most people would be too afraid to actually put the child straight and to say to them, you know, whoever's got you selling drugs and isn't your friend. People are actually too afraid to say that, and this is how they get brainwashed. And you might think this is very, very hard to believe, but what I want to put to you here is that you must understand that I'm sure most of you in your life sometime have met a child. Or it doesn't sometimes, adults can get groomed as well, because adults can be idiots sometimes. But sometimes you'll hear a person and you can tell that child believes that bad behaviour is normal behaviour. And what you need to understand and respect is that the existence of this child is physical, undeniable evidence that almost 100% of all good people in the world do not correct children. They're always scared into not doing the right thing, and you have to understand this. It's a bit like that famous famous detective, you know, the one that said, you know, elementary dear Watson, I can't remember, he had that famous saying that you eliminate all possibilities, and what's left, no matter how unlikely, must be the truth. And what I'm saying to you is I'm using this philosophy to say, if that child literally believes that it's normal behaviour, it means they've never heard anything to the contrary, and the existence of that child is 100% proof. It's rock solid evidence proof that almost all of the good people in the world are giving into fear. You can't scare a good person into condemning someone on the strength of a rumour. You won't be able to do it. But scaring a good person into not socialising with someone that has a rumour connected to it is very easy. It's very, very easy. It's too easy. And this is actually how it happens. And also, I also want to give you some good advice about how to kind of prevent this and kind of how to spot criminal rings and criminal behaviour. And say, for example, because it happens to adults a lot as well. Say, for example, if someone's saying something very subtle to you or subtly threatening you because like, for example, it does happen. I've known of it happen where a person had a very, very good influence on children, really put them in the right path and really talk them into staying on the right side of the law, tell them about how criminals work, yada, yada, yada. And that person got rumours spread about them that they're a paedophile. And of course, I knew exactly, because I'm clued up with criminal nature, I knew why that rumour was spread. But most people don't really know, they don't really get it, because there are very few people that don't give in to fear or are not scared into not doing the right thing and correcting children. And what the criminals do is it's very important to them. They keep that person's influence away from the children. So they'll spread a rumour like they're a paedophile or some bad or violent or bad influence or something like that. Because it's of utmost importance that that person be kept away from. So they'll spread rumours around all the parents or stay away from that person. Keep your children away from that person. Whereas the truth is they're saying that because that person will teach the child to stay on the right side of the law. That person will teach children about the nature of crime and criminals and how they work and that kind of stuff, so that they won't be able to groom them, or in a situation where they've already groomed them but they'll come on top and they'll end up in prison, yada yada yada. So it's very important to kind of look at things from both points of view. Psychology teaches us that the mind doesn't understand negative, so these people that are groomed in criminal rings, they think that because everyone they hear has this criminal narrative that must be everyone's opinion, and they don't stop to think outside the box and think, well, maybe people that I haven't spoken to don't have this idea. So again, it goes on with this narrative that the empire wins by making you believe that you're alone. So what's really, really important here is people have to stop giving in to fear of not doing the right thing, because what happens is when almost all people don't do the right thing, it actually facilitates criminals' ability to manipulate and brainwash a child into believing that their criminal narrative is the only narrative. And remember this, I can't emphasize it enough. We've all met children at some time in our life that believe that bad behaviour is normal behaviour. There's your physical evidence that the vast majority of us here, the good people, aren't doing bad things to the children, but we're given into fear to not do the right things. You have to correct them. Sometimes another little scenario, a person might show fraternal instincts towards a child which isn't their own, and some criminals say, you're some kind of fucking paedophile or something, and want to beat you up, and they use fear. And the reason why criminals do that is because if they allow people with fraternal instincts to be around children aren't their own, they're going to correct them, and it will cause a knock-on effect of the criminals ending up in prison. That's why they do things like that. And the thing is, they do it and they act like they're ignorant when they do it, but they're actually intelligent. They know what they're doing. They know they're doing it for the wrong reasons when they do things like that. I'm advising you little advisory notes I can give you to kind of help stop this corruption of our youngsters. Is first of all, stop giving into fear to not doing the right thing. That's got to stop, because remember, if a child believes that bad behaviour is normal behaviour, it can only mean one thing. Almost 100% of us are given into that fear of not doing the right thing. So remember, that's very important. We've got to start blaming ourselves and taking responsibility, and stop blaming the police and the government. A lot of it is our fault. A lot of it really is. And also there's lots of things you might hear. It's like, criminals will push this ideology to people that even aren't victims of criminal rings. say, oh, the police are all corrupt or the police won't do anything. That's a way of, again, it's consistent with making you believe you're alone. If they make you believe that, then you're less likely to go to the police. So when people think the police are corrupt, but the very people that stonewall the police are the ones that accuse the police of being corrupt. If no one tells the police anything, the police can't do anything. It's not corruption. So, yeah, you can give anonymous tip-offs, but the police can't convict someone on anonymous tip-offs. Someone has to face that person face to face. Someone has to. I'm not saying don't make anonymous reports to the police, because though they can't convict someone on it, which is correct, is you'd be convicting someone on the strength of rumour, but anonymous reports can't affect whether a person gets convicted or not, but it can affect sentencing. So what happens is, if someone does come forward and does say someone does face that person in court, all those hundreds of anonymous reporters that reported him that didn't speak to him face to face, that will affect the sentencing. So if you're too scared to face someone face to face, report them anonymously. And one day someone will go face to face with this person in court and will get the person convicted. And all those people that made anonymous reports will double or even triple that person's prison sentence, because they'll look at that and say, well, it isn't his nature. He was found guilty from someone that faced him in court, and there's 50 other anonymous reports of this person doing the same thing. So I'm going to double or triple his sentence, you see. So, and also, any other advice I can give you is that, apart from not giving in to fear, there's a few things you can do to spot criminals as well. Like, for example, if someone's putting forward some kind of, criminal narrative to you, they're coming out with some story about all the police are corrupt, or they're not going to do anything, or normalizing any type of criminal behaviour. Okay, when someone says that to you, look around and see who's with him, and see what's and go, oh yeah, I agree, because they're probably a part of the criminal ring as well, because that's how they work. They get a group of them all together, and they surround one person, say something, and then normalize a criminal narrative while everyone's going to say, oh yeah. That's how they brainwash people. So whenever they do that, look who's around. Whoever's around going, and actually really identifying what they're saying, they're a part of the criminal ring normally. So do that as well. That's a good way to actually kind of spot, who's a part of the criminal ring. And strangely enough, these things are a part of life in general, not just criminal rings. You could go to the workplace and someone's doesn't like someone in work and wants to get rid of them, and they'll bait them and they'll say things to them and look around the shoulder. What other work colleagues are around? It actually applies to a lot of things in life. So you turn around, stop the people who are going, oh yeah. So this is another way to help. And so if you do report them to police, you can say, well, actually, when you're around, so and so is around. They're always the same people around when they do this. So they do surround people, and they get people one at a time. So obviously there's a lot more that I would like to speak about criminal nature that I could go through, but if you watch a lot of my other videos, you'll find some other interesting videos. Because I've got about 2 or 3 other videos on YouTube about criminal nature. But this video, like I say, I wanted to really focus on the victims, people that are victims of paedophile rings or criminal rings. I just want to make you aware of the techniques that criminals used to trick you into believing that you were alone. And another thing, and you have to understand that you're not alone. So what I want to also say to you in closing this video is that I want to, anyone listening to this video that was a victim of, say, of a paedophile ring, I want to start out by stating to you that what happened was disgusting. It's wrong. It's not normal. It's never ever the child's fault. It's always the adult's fault. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you need to hear that. And the reason why you believe that it was normal behaviour, because some people like me didn't say that to you. So anyone that's watching this video, do what I'm doing to the people right now. Tell them, and it's not just sexual misconduct, any criminal ring. And you have to state to them, to youngsters, that criminal behaviour isn't normal. People could try to convince you that it's okay to kill someone if they're a paedophile or not. It's not. Killing people is always wrong. It's very, very bad. I know that, you might be really, really afraid and you want to invoke fear in people, potential paedophiles, to keep your children safe, but invoking fear in the long run never ever leads to a good path. If something like that happens, no matter how angry you are, no matter how much you want to tear them apart, you need to use self-control and understand that no matter how bad someone's done, killing people is always wrong. use self-control, go to the boys in blue, report it, let the police deal with it. Because children can't get away with lying. If someone's actually interfered with a child, the person will get convicted because children can't lie, and people in the jury will know that the child's not lying. So it's very, very important to understand that. Because this is another thing which criminals will normalise. They'll always try to normalise this. And the reason why they try to normalise it, they're acting like, oh, they're spreading this for the right reasons, or they're spreading it because they're fearful and they spread fear that will keep their children somehow safer. But most of the times when they say that, they're actually criminals that spreading kind of normalising criminal behaviour. And also I'd like to say, any youngsters or children watching this, teenagers that are out there or selling marijuana, I want to state to you, whoever's got you selling drugs is not your friend. Trust me when I say that. If you're a youngster, you've got your whole life ahead of you. You get a criminal record, your future's going to be screwed. It really, really will be. So anyway, I'm going to close with that. Thank you very, very much for listening. If you get time and you're interested in more about criminal nature or criminal stuff, I've got a few other videos about it. So you take care, God bless, and stay on the right side of the law.